When there's nothing left but the fire in my chest and the air that fills my lungs.
Where these things are coming from. We have elected officials, we have alternative news sites and personalities, we have mainstream news sites and personalities, we have celebrities of various types beginning to use anti-whitism, anti-white, some more of the dialectics, because we are doing the job that is recapturing our destiny, the actual work of white well-being. We even have people who are beginning and have been now for some couple of months to use the lexicon and dialectics who do not like us. Well, I'll just go ahead and say they do not like me, but they probably love all of you. But they don't like that you use the lexicon and dialectics, and yet, as I said would happen all along, they have to submit to it because it works, because it wins for white well-being, because their followers will use it because it wins, because it improves their lives, like Masumi Rabbit, Lovely Porridge, one of our geniuses and hardest working from down under writes. I also saw a clip using white wellness. Note that. Not white well-being, white wellness. Exactly as I said, folks, that many of these content producers would do because of the jealousy, because of the envy, because somebody figured it out other than them. And because their aggrandizement is more important to them than the well-being of our people, the well-being of our children, the well-being of our elderly, the well-being of our sick, because that is more important to them. They will change what works ever so slightly so that they can say it comes from them. Lovely Porridge goes on and says, which gave me a laugh when he hears using white wellness. The problem with many of these guys is that for so long, they have said that if you do not name the puppies, you are a cuck. It would take a lot of humility to admit that you, Jason, were right. But I think they are at least hinting that you are right by borrowing the verbiage. Hopefully, their fans will realize this and prefer to get it firsthand from us. Amen to you many times over, dear brother. And what I'm going to do right now is I was sent a video. You're not going to believe this. I won't say from whom. And I do want to share this, though.
It's sort of funny because sometimes you get conservatives like, oh, so if we find a way that somebody is attacking another group, like as that entire group and call.
I want you to pay special attention. Not exactly sure who these people are who are speaking. It's a group of three. But I want you to pay special attention because I understand that this group of three really don't like me very much.
It out, then maybe we'll get something done. And usually they opt for, the funny thing is, they will do Christians. They'll say anti-Christian. And they'll say like anti-conservative. They never say anti-white.
I'm sorry?
That's one thing they're not supposed to say ever. And that's because, again, the people they listen to will never do that. So they always deflect it to anti-conservative. But the problem is
I think I've heard that. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Me over 2 decades.
Conservative is a political position. So people see that as just legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, oh, well, you're allowed to be disagreeing with conservatives. It's a political view, right? So I can, it's like, it's not a race.
I really am. Whoever these guys are, they're getting it right. And kudos to them. So let's keep going.
It's not a religion. It's not like a protected category. So it's fine. But what it is it's really what you're reacting to is anti-white. And you're...
Yes. Over 2 decades of meetings, of conferences, of pamphlets of going free, working their way up to bigger pamphlet. Well, I actually started off with, I wouldn't even call it a pamphlet. It was a flyer. Then a pamphlet, maybe a little thicker, and then getting bigger, it got a little thicker, and then eventually it became a very small booklet. It became a booklet. And then eventually I kept adding to it over the decades, still going out, still getting rejected by my peers, still getting rejected by the old timers, and many of the old timers. No, Jason, no. And the peers, no, Jason. The academics, certainly, no, Jason, no. You're not going the right direction. You're not going the right direction, Jason. But I said, I'm staying this direction because I know it's right, because I know it works, because it is changing people's lives. I don't give a damn what you think about my direction. I don't give a damn what you think about how unsettling this is for you, about how out of the ordinary, about how I remember others. I wonder if the others who are listening right now, do you remember saying that I was jumping the shark? I remember that. I remember that, you SOBs. Yeah, I remember you saying that I was jumping the shark by calling people anti-whites and using anti-whitism and saying that we had to focus on improving the individual and saying these things that these wonderful people are now, 3 people are saying right now. You'll hear 3 different voices, don't know who they are, but they do seem now to be getting this. So I'm very happy. Let's listen to some more.
You're disarming. You're helping your enemies who are attacking white people racially and be like, I'm tired of this anti-conservatives. No.
Really? Really? Good for these guys. I think they're going to go far. I think these guys are going to go real far now. I think they're going to have some real success now. You're helping, well, they're calling them enemies. Now, maybe these guys will catch on. You don't want to call them enemies. You want to call them victimizers. Maybe they'll catch on another 2 decades. I'm afraid I've been ahead by about 2 decades. So maybe in about 2 more decades, they'll start calling them anti-whites. But you are empowering them by using their what? Their vernacular. Oh. And making the issue not about race, but about politics or about policies. I tell you, I'm really starting to like these guys more and more. Let's hear what they have to say.
Call it anti-white. Like there were those times when which is why I think people should be taking up these kinds of cases, should be getting, I mean, I hate to say it, but look, you have to be, if you're going to be discriminated against, make sure it's clear why you're being discriminated against. That's what conservatives do that's so awful, is they obfuscate it and they let their enemies get away with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll second that. I remember being on the Hill in Bush Jr.'s first term, making these speeches in D.C. during Bush Jr.'s first term.
If it's anti-white, it's anti-white. It's not anti-conservative. They're allowed to be anti-conservative.
I really like these young guys. What do you think? You think they're going to go far?
So, on that note,
make your enemies explain how they're not discriminating against you.
Yeah,
don't let them get away with it.
Assume that they are.
Yeah. Wow. Whoever sent this audio, they really caught a gem of these parvenus, I guess. These guys who are obviously upstarts, and they are just getting into the white sympathetic sphere. They are seeing what's working, and they're saying, geez, let's go ahead and use what works, and let's go ahead and be in a place of love rather than a place of hatred of other groups of people. Let's try that out. I really see these guys going far. Don't you? I see them going really far. I hope that we don't see what we see with Mr. Itty Bitty with white wellness. I hope we don't start seeing white wellness instead of just white well-being. We have verbiage that is out there. It is growing. It has steam. There is no sense in putting your ego ahead of the success of our people right now. It is too late in the day. It is too late in the day. It is okay to say, thank you, Jason.
Make them explain how they're not, and make it racial. That's the one thing. Conservatives, that's why the conservative let's not be racial position is the weakest thing ever. Now, we already did the Mark Lamont Hill on striking Mike.
Well. I have to say, I am very excited about folks who are even not necessarily fans, or who do not necessarily like yours truly, are beginning to use, which exactly as I said, and I'll tell you right now, there are guys in their 80s, there are guys in their 70s, there are guys in their 60s and 50s as well, that I have spoken to over the years as I planned and worked through all this. A lot of mentors, a lot of wise individuals that some places they're wrong, some places they're right. I took what I thought was right. I pieced everything together. I took what I was putting together to them. Sometimes they said, Jason, this is wrong because of that. And I said, wow, thank God you said that, because I didn't even see you're right. That is wrong. And I would move that out. Cure for aging, it comes from a certain stream. Then you want to send people back to that stream. You don't want to claim that you have the fountain of youth because you have stolen a cup of water from the fountain of youth. Let's go ahead and have a look. Let's get into this audio. Again, I don't know who this is, and we will see what this person...
Call it what it is. The system hates white people.
Well. Already I'm excited about this person. Sounds like a young man. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and rewind it some to hear what he has to say right here at the very beginning.
Let's just call it what it is. The system hates white people.
That's right. That's what I've been saying for 2 decades, that it's all about hating white people. And that's what we should focus on, is the one thing, and I talk about this in Go Free, I talk about this all the way going back. In fact, I say 2 decades, as an adult. I started talking about this at 11 years of age. And I have a book called Crucible all about it. And I discovered, to my horror, indeed, that it was about hating white people, that it was not about all of these other excuses. That's all they were, just pretexts. And in Going Free, we call that mis-pretexting, M-I-S, moralized, intellectualized, sentimentalized. It's just the excuses they give to inflict injury on Western kind and Western civilization. So this young man has started off in the right place. Let's see.
It's just what it is. And everybody wants to call it everything other than that. They want to call...
Yeah, precisely. I mean, I really like where he's going now. I really like where he's going. That is precisely what I've been arguing. Everybody wants to call it something else. Everybody wants to call it something else. They want to, I've been saying now for decades, they want to call it things like anti-capitalism, anti-family, anti-conservative values, anti-anything other than what it really is anti, and it's anti-white. Let's keep rolling.
But everything other than what it is. You may hear conservatives talk about cultural Marxism, critical...
Yes, this guy really knows what he's talking about. And I could pick the book up right now, and I could start reading from all the years ago that I wrote, that it's things like Marxism and feminism. They are subsets of the superset that is anti-whiteism. Anti-whiteism. Remember, everybody thought, don't use anti-white and anti-whiteism. For all these years, they thought Jason made it up. Since 1994-ish, Jason just invented those words. They're not in the dictionary, made them up. Then at the end of, 2000, what was it? 7, 8, 9 or so, Bob, whose last name sounds like wicker, like the chair you sit in, started using a slogan that racism is a code word for anti-white. That was the first time I heard it used outside of my use. He didn't use anti-whiteism. I don't know if Bob would have heard me use anti-whiteism and then say, geez, Jason, you made that up. I don't know. I doubt it. But we found out that I didn't make either of them up. Final Blossom found in the dictionary, 50-year-old dictionary, and now we found in numerous dictionaries, old dictionaries, the anti-whites have extirpated these words out. So now it's okay. You don't have to hate Jason, and by not use these anti-white and anti-whiteism. Now they're legitimate. He could go. That's what it is. I've been arguing on Marxism and And let's see what else he has to say.
Critical race theory, that's the new one.
Oh.
Marxism. Critical race theory, that's the new one. Got to ban critical race theory, CR.
Wow, yes. I like where the young man is going. Yes, that's the new one. Remember, we never call the anti-whites and the things they name by the names of their taking. Remember? That's something we learn in Going Free. I thought he's really, this person, he's going to go places. He's catching on.
RT. And critical race theory has Marxist origins. It's socialism, it's communism, it's anti-Western, it's anti-Western civilization,
Yes, anti-Western. And you know what I used to say back in when I was working on the Hill in 2001 in the nerve center for the conservative movement. I used to say, when they would say, oh, it's anti-Western, Jason, it's not about white people. I would say, there is no Western civilization without white people, just like there is no forest without trees. Saying that all the way back in 2001. It's almost like I was saying that when this young man who was talking was in diapers. I don't exactly know how old he is, but I don't know who he is. So could be that I've been saying it since that he was in diapers, though.
Western culture. Conservatives even will call it anything other than what it is, because it's not politically correct to say what it is.
Oh. Now that's where he does. You don't want to use that, young man. He's still got a ways to go. You never want to use the anti-white lexicon, because, you know, when we use their terminology, we legitimize their ideology. That's a mean curative. We don't want to use their terminology, because by doing so, you legitimize their ideology. You end up staying inside of their anti-white narrative. And inside that narrative, you cannot win. Let's continue.
You can't utter it in polite society, but we all know what it is.
You can't utter it in society. Why? Not because it's not politically correct. We don't use that term, but because our people have been infected with MPs, meme pathogens, anti-white ideas that tell them that it is immoral to say such things, that it is moral to be, and this is how I figured it out when I was 11 and 12 years old. They told me it was moral to pretend like there is no race when it came to white people. It was moral to discriminate against white people. It was moral to take from white people and give to non-white people. So then I figured out, well, then it's immoral. This went both ways, this flipping of the coin. And I would bring this to the administrators and the teachers. It was immoral to care about white well-being. That sounds like a sick system to me. And the adults could not argue against it, except to then slander me as these 20th century historical figures and acting like I was in different little villainy groups in their narrative. Let's continue. I'm liking, overall though, I'm really liking where this young man is going. How about you?
It's racial. It's racial hatred.
Yes.
They hate white people. And why is everybody so afraid to call it that? Of course that's what it is. What has been engendered in the population for the past 2 years?
What? Now I know that this guy is young. The bliss of nonage, just the absolute bliss of nonage. What has been engendered for the past 2 years? Let's continue.
What's been engendered in the population for the past 30 years?
30 years. Now it's, wow. Now it's really going back. No, so you can definitely tell that this guy is a young guy, and this is a phenomenon of human nature to think that the moment before you were able to perceive the world, that it was much better than it is in the moment that you're able to perceive it. So he's obviously then under 30 years of age, because he's saying in the past 30 years, it's been getting bad. Well, no, probably the past 30 years you've been alive. It's actually been going on much longer. I was lucky in that I had already been going with my father to check on senior citizens in the community and just say hello and listen to them. And so when I got to the point of participating, and I don't know, maybe, I mean, if you want to attribute just being sensible, even as a young man to me, then I'll accept that. Thank you for that. But once I got into the white sympathetic spheres, I searched out the seniors there. I searched out the old folks and I said, tell me what it was like when you were a youth, and then where you were middle-aged, and where you were growing up. And some of them were crazy as all get out. Other ones had valuable things. Almost all of them had something that I could take away from the conversation. And I saw that each person I spoke with had these like little gold nuggets. Some of them had more, some of them had less, and they were wanting to share. They had this wisdom they wanted to share, and I would greedily take it up. And then discovered that, well, the world had been very anti-white a very, very long time ago. Western civilization has not been in our hands for a very long time, long before our lives, our parents' lives, our grandparents' lives. So no need to talk about when exactly it started. That's doom dissecting. I want to get back to this young man because I'm excited about what he is saying. He's definitely going in the right direction, and I strongly encourage that.
Other than anti-white hatred, what are people learning? What's been engendered in the population for the past 30 years? Other than anti-white hatred, what are people learning in the schools? When you go to grade school and you go to American history class, what do you learn about?
You learn, just like I said, in my true story called Crucible, when I was all the way back in junior high school in 7th and 8th grade, and I've been talking about this since then, all through high school, all through my young adulthood. I've been in the white sympathetic sphere, being silenced for so long because I was talking about things a very different way, about doing something a very different way, which is coming to fruition now, the only way that works. I talk about what the teachers were teaching. I talk about the big shrine that was in that junior high school. Look it up. I'm not going to say it because the ear is at the door. I talk about what they were teaching. It was all about hating the white race. Not about all of the, not about economy, not about right and wrong, not about, it was just excuses to victimize Western kind and Western civilization. Sounds like this young man is a really smart young man. He's really getting it, and I think heading down the right path. Good for him.
In the new Howard Zinn curriculum, you learn about how white people genocided the indigenous Americans.
Okay, well, let me just stop for a moment right there. It's okay to name something like saying the new Howard Zinn curriculum, but you cannot do it in the absence of mentioning that there have been hundreds, thousands of other curricula throughout Western civilization long before Howard Zinn that were teaching the exact same meme pathogens that Zinn is teaching through his curriculum. The exact same things. Plenty of us did not have this particular individual or individuals creating this curriculum and pushing it onto the population, infecting us. They were different anti-whites, and it's always dangerous to name a specific one. This young man, whoever he is, he mentions in the beginning, he mentioned critical race theory, how that's the new thing that conservatives and Republicans, they want to talk about. And he mentioned it in perhaps he's grappling with this, and he's understanding that you don't want to just pick something like that out and then say, oh, well, this particular thing is the problem. The reason why we've talked about here, back when Trump was president, or at least acting, he was at least pretending to be president, whatever he was. He's a great actor, so maybe that's what it was. He said he was going to ban, I don't know if he actually signed an executive order that critical race theory would not be taught or would not be forced on government employees. And what did we say right here? What happened? Well, they would just rename the anti-whitism something else. They instantly did. The printing shops started rolling. It had a brand new name. The states now that are saying we're going to ban critical race theory. Bad, 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 bad. Those laws are going to just be used against white people. The way that they're written, the anti-whites will be able to go through and pick out the lines and say, this means that you can never point out X, that you can never point out Y, and it's always white people's fault. The states should be banning anti-whitism. That's what they should be banning. You can't even make a general statement about, well, you can't blame a single race for X, Y, or Z. Because what will then happen is that will then immediately get turned around by anti-whites. Haven't white people learned yet? I mean, you're talking about anti-whites. The very intelligent anti-whites are as protean as they come. They will take whatever you write, unless you make it as, I shouldn't even say that, because you have to have the force of will and desire behind it as well. But you have to make it as clear as possible. Anti-whitism is illegal. That's what has to be said. Let's continue listening to the young man, though, because I'm told that he is building one heck of an audience. And let's hope he continues going in the right direction.
White people enslaved black people and brought them over here.
Now, these things, what are these things, folks? I would like this young man to pick this up and start saying it to his audience that apparently is growing. I'm told is growing. What is it? The white people exterminated non-white people, the white people enslaved non-white people. These are meme pathogens. It's important. It's important. You have to put these things into a concept so that they can be held in the minds of your audience. How do I know this? Well, I've been working on it for decades.
Once freed by whites, whites mistreated blacks by being racist towards them, terrorizing them with the Ku Klux Klan,
Yes.
segregating them, making them drink in separate water fountains. We hear about how white...
And this is what? The anti-white narrative. I would like this young man to start using the phrase anti-white narrative, because it's important that we name what, and it's, I could go on for a very long time about all of the hidden premises and the thought chains that are derived by the deductions, inevitable deductions. But suffice it to say that he should use anti-white narrative rather than this intangible, this turbid phraseology of it's just being taught a subject and the subject is tilted a particular way and taught another subject and it's tilted a specific way. You can't do it like that. That's not how the brain works. That's not how people are able to take it up and understand it easily. They can easily take up and understand something called the anti-white narrative, and how in it, everything is always going to conclude with the victimization of Western kind and Western civilization. Let's hope. And I'll tell you this, I am available if he would like some mentorship.
Supremacist Nazis try to take over the whole world.
That's what we're called.
With their fascist ideology in World War II. And it was white. It was because they were Aryan. It's because they were white supremacist, because they believed in racial purity of the race. That made them uniquely evil. They perpetrated the Holocaust against Jews. And that was by far and away the most obscene, worst genocide ever in the history of the world. And then, when all was said and done, white people were racist to the Muslims that blew up the World Trade Center.
Okay, so he's talking again about meme pathogens. Meme pathogens. How easy is it to say we have a collection of things called MPs and you put them in a box? The MPs are infections. Versus how easy as it is to think about every single subject out there that could depict us in a negative light. Very easy for the average brother or sister out there, the average vague, to say, aha, I understand that all of these things are called meme pathogens. They're infections. They're anti-white infections in the mind. I can put them in this box and I can label it MP. Now I've got it. Now I can move forward with everything else. that is being discussed. This is getting quite complicated for the average vague, as they're hearing, well, you mean I have to learn about when white people arrived in the Americas, when white people arrived in South Africa, when white people arrived in Australia. I have to learn the whole histories of what exactly happened in the conflicts there. I have to learn all about world slavery. I have to study all of that history. I got to know about trans-Sahara, transatlantic. I've got to know who owned the slave ships and who owned the what were these called? I don't know, the camel marches or whatever they were. Who, you know, the camel trains, and who owned the Silk Road, and who owned and then who was buying and who was selling, and where were whites being enslaved, and what about the Barbary slave trade. You got to learn about all that. Then you got to learn all about what happened after, who actually put an end to slavery, and who was, you got to have all of those details together as well. And then you have to forget about it. Forget it. I could go on and on. That is enormous, isn't it? Who's going to want to do that? No one. It doesn't work, right? We are in a Western civilization burning to ashes, and in large part because the exercise of going free has been stifled, ignored, shouted out, shut down, disparaged, mocked, ridiculed, everything under the sun. If this had been adopted and picked up 2 decades ago, imagine where we would be today. Let's keep rolling. I think he's doing great so far, though. He's got a couple things. He got, you know, I'm ready for the he could be a protege.
White people are racist to black criminals and the police. Basically, people are bred from cradle until grave thinking that white people are uniquely evil people. White people bear a special guilt for all the problems of this country, all the problems of
It's called white guilt. They have white guilted us. You want to give a name, a conceptual name to this. I learned a long time ago that people cannot hold, they've got jobs. They've got jobs. Even if they have the easiest manual labor job in the world, they've got jobs. They've got maybe substances they abuse. They have a wife or husband that's a jerk. They have bad children. They've got car payments. The car was taken by a tow truck in the middle of the night, the repo man, and they just don't have the mental space to be able to think of all of that. You have to say they white guilt you. They understand that. They can keep that.
Every other group, and really like all the problems of humanity. And that's a guilt that is ancestral. It's
all the problems for all of humanity, precisely. And it is he says ancestral. It's a guilt that is ancestral. It's absolutely, it is the way that you are born. That's why my 700 plus page book is called Born Guilty. And it has the brand marks in the beautiful little white baby of all of these anti-white slurs, we call them, right? Anti-white slurs. Precisely. I really like where he's going. Don't you think he has a lot of potential?
It's not individual. Everyone has it, and you can never overcome it.
Not individualized. Yes, you are. If you're white, you are born guilty. You see how he's really getting close there. I'm excited.
There's no clear way, discernibly, that you can ever overcome it and ever achieve equality.
No, all you can ever do, here's the word, brother, it's palliate. The word you're looking for is palliate. It means that you can soothe, you can briefly mitigate, but you can never cure. The anti-whites give you ample opportunity to soothe and mitigate, right? Turn over more, spread your legs wider, give more apologies, allow yourself to be discriminated against more. That is palliation.
With these non-white people.
By the way, that's not a word I neoterized. We do have a little bit of jargon in Going Free because every exercise, a mental exercise, every profession, every trade, they have jargon. There's far less jargon in Go Free, the practice of going free of the anti-white narrative, than you have for your trade or your profession. Now, maybe you might still complain about that little amount of jargon because you've never worked a day in your life and you just live on welfare. So I imagine it would be difficult if you're a dropout and you live on welfare and you never had to learn any jargon, and you're like, I don't want to have to learn something like white well-being. Why would I want to? That's difficult. He wants us to use strange words. Palliate is already in the dictionary. By the way, so is the word well-being, and so is the word white. We just put them together in a way that empowers us. Let's keep rolling.
And it's as a consequence of this that these things are becoming more and more common. White people are being dehumanized. Yes. And when white people...
Wow, I gave a speech. I think I was at a library. In the title was something along the line of white people dehumanized. I think that's just what it was. White people, we're dehumanized. It was something like that. Let's keep rolling. That was a long, long time ago.
People are dehumanized. Black people are going to start killing white people because they see them as less than human.
Well, he's getting wrong there. See, he does need some mentorship, and I'm offering, if he, I don't know who he is, so we'll see if he reaches out or not. But no. Black people are not going to begin killing white people because we are pictured, and the AC was making some strange noise there, because we are pictured and depicted as evil and dehumanized. Anti-white black people, just like anti-white white people, they will attack, they will justify, they will, in their minds, excuse whatever they do, every rape, every burglary, every molestation, every murder, every maiming, everything, every firing, every demotion, every no promotion, because you're white. Yes, it's anti-white, though. It's not the nature of the way that a person is born that makes them a problem. It's when they behave or think as an anti-white. Let's roll.
And other people are going to start killing white people because they see them as less than human.
Anti-whites. It's not just killing, though. You're really missing. He's good. I mean, he's good, right? I think he's got a lot of potential, but he's really missing here, because if you're downplaying by just talking about killing and murder, you're downplaying the ineffable amount of suffering and victimization that is inflicted on our people by the having to live inside the anti-white narrative. I just ran down a handful of things that can that happen. There are many categories. So murder is start killing. See, another problem with that is if you're speaking to your audience and you say to them, well, at some point this is going to get bad, then people are going to sit on their hands. They're just going to be focused on, well, when does that one point happen? And then they make their activities about finding out, well, when can we predict when this is going to happen? Where can I run before this happens? How soon do I have to pack? I mean, young man, do I have to pack right now? Do I get out the suitcase right now? When are they going to start killing us? No, it's worse than that. But it's okay. Otherwise, I mean, I'm really strong, and we're more than halfway through. So let's continue.
How much do you want to bet that this, whatever his name is, was radicalized by the media into thinking that white people are racist and responsible for his suffering, not just as a black man, but as a gay man too? And that he committed this crime in retaliation for that perceived prejudice.
That's again going off the rails a little bit, because he's talking about some non-white man who also happened to be attracted to men, and this young man here is saying that, how much do you want to bet that the murder or the harm he inflicted on a white person was retaliation? You don't want to give your victimizer an excuse. And that is an excuse. That's to say that this anti-white, non-white guy who is attracted to other men is really not fully to blame, because he was taught about things that led to the dehumanization of white people, and therefore he committed this act. No, anti-whites are responsible for their crimes. They're responsible for their thoughts. They're responsible for their words, and they're responsible for their words that lead to physical acts of violence against white people, which can be a punch in the mouth. It can be a fire. It can be a demotion. It can be not getting into the university, right? And they are motivated by jealousy and envy. They, in their own head, they know that they're motivated by jealousy and envy. They resent us because of that jealousy and that envy for us, both white and non-white anti-whites. And then in their own head, yes, they will use to try to camouflage to themselves, because even unless the anti-white is truly a sick individual, even they know that raping or murdering or thieving just out of pure jealousy and envy is somewhat untoward. So even they know that. So in the moment, they will lie to themselves and say, or even afterward, they will lie to themselves and say, but we know what's actually taking place. More importantly, we have to win over the hundreds of millions of our brothers and sisters out there. And if you go out there, they've already shown so many of our brothers and sisters, they keep voting Republican, calling themselves conservatives, that they believe they still live in Mayberry. You have Aunt B and you have Andy and you have Opie, and they still believe they live in Mayberry. So they will project who they are. It's a human failing in many ways now in multiracial society. It was a wonderful thing in homogeneous societies. They will project who they are into those around them. And they will say then, oh, well, it's not really this anti-white guy's fault because he was lied to. No, it is his fault from start to finish. If you give anti-whites a way out, white people will drop their sense of being aggrieved by them like this. That's how white people are. They will drop it like, oh, there's an excuse. There's a way that I can drop my sense of feeling aggrieved by that individual. Well, then I will drop it right now. So you never do that. You tell our brothers and sisters out there that anti-whites are what they are. They're monsters. They're inflicting injury because of jealousy and envy every single time. That's what motivates them. So let's keep rolling. Yeah, don't give them. Could you imagine? Could you imagine the chorus of ladies, both men and women? Could you imagine the chorus of these ladies that would come out and say, oh my God, they were just misled. Oh, they were misled by their TVs and their teachers. Oh my God, you can't possibly hold them responsible. I mean, it would just be unending. Let's keep rolling. Go for it, young man.
Perceived hatred against him. That's the consequence of all this anti-white hatred and dehumanization in the media, education system, and it's even enshrined in the law systematically through the government. I mean, what do you think affirmative action is?
Let me jump in there really quick. If you're ever going to mention, and I hope this young man ends up hearing this, if you're ever going to mention the laws that are enshrined so that we can be discriminated against, you always have to mention, because there are so few of them, the anti-whites have been cunning, if they've been anything. They don't need to write down all of the discrimination, the persecution, the victimization of Western kind into law form or into rule form. That is one of the weakest ways to accomplish their objectives. Instead, you make all laws, all rules, all codes informed by an anti-white morality. That way, every rule, every law, every code, every act arrives at an anti-white conclusion. If you say, well, it's in the law that, and you don't mention this fact, then what you have is anti-whites that come back and say, there is this one law out there that just allows these poor folks, and because we're trying to achieve equity, just to get a little bit more because they've been so oppressed. Well, piss on that. So don't fall into this trap about talking about that it's in the law, and so therefore.
And a lot of white people don't want to talk about it now. They don't want to address it. They want to pretend that that's not the case because, honestly, I think a lot of white people think that it's beneath them. I think that white people think that it's our job to be better, to strive towards a post-racial.
These are excuses. So his honest conclusion is wrong. And it's a bit more like Jared Taylor's position that white people are, that even anti-white people are good people. They want to achieve good things. Again, you're giving them an excuse. And if you give them an excuse, white people will not defend themselves against them. We have our entire lifetimes, the entire lifetimes of our parents, the entire lifetimes of our grandparents, etc., to witness the history that if white people believe that the individual or individuals who are victimizing them are not intending to victimize them, white people will not defend ourselves. So you cannot tell your flock, and I understand this guy has growing a big audience, good for him, this young, whoever he is, I'll have to look into him at some point. You cannot tell them that these people have a noble sentiment who are behaving this way, that race is beneath them, that's the way they really feel. No, these are lies that they will say to conceal the fact that they are either anti-white when they're in audience that is not anti-white, or to conceal their cowardice. They want to conceal how cowardly they are, because if they say the truth, if they say, I do see how bad it really is, I do see what's really being done, then by the mere fact of doing nothing in response, they admit to the deepest pusillanimity, the deepest cowardice that you can imagine. So let's keep rolling. Just talk about cravens.
Society that we ought not to notice race, and we should try not to notice race, that it's a good thing to aspire to not notice race. I think that white people are under the impression that to be cognizant of race and to mention it and act like it matters is beneath us. Like it.
Not beneath them. They have been taught, and this again, he's right now he's becoming an abstractionist, isn't he? Even though he's still talking about race and the importance of race, he's falling back. It's okay. He's a young guy, right? He's a young guy. And he's learning. Look how far I'm told he's come a long way from wherever he was. He's learning. But he's becoming an abstractionist here. Let's listen to that again.
Of race, and to mention it and act like it matters is beneath us. Like it's backwards, it's regressive, it's primitive.
White people have been taught by way of the anti-white narrative that to care about white well-being is immoral. According to the anti-white narrative and anti-white morality, it is immoral to care about white people. They are told that that is what everyone else around them believes, that it is immoral. And in endless scenarios over the course of their lives, they have witnessed characters in fiction and then fictionalized real individuals that the anti-whites then distort in news and history books and the like, that those people who care about the well-being of our weakest members, of our babies, of our people, of our history, of our heritage, etc., that they are ugly, that they are evil, that they have evil things going on in their basements, that they always are plotting about hurting innocent people, and that they're all of these horrible things. And so white people don't want to be, the average white person doesn't want to be identified with that, simultaneously fearing what happens. Seeing in all of the fiction the hatred of the beautiful, the smart, the etc. on those, fearing that will happen to them, and also fearing what they see in the real world, which is the doxing, the firings, not being able to pay your bills, not being able to pay for food, not being able to pay for insurance, auto insurance, home insurance, renter's insurance, whatever it might be. So they are not making, you're giving them a get out of jail pass you are by saying that they think it's beneath them and it's moral to be in a post-racial society. Those are lies. Those are lies. The people saying those things know that they are lies. And furthermore, it doesn't matter if God himself were to come down to me and say, well, Jason, in this one case here, that person actually believes it, if you can believe it or not. I would not care, because it would serve to undermine the recapture of our destiny, to tell our people that there are folks like that one out there who are accidentally victimizing you. What is important is the recapture of our destiny. That's what's important, not what is measured in a beaker in a laboratory somewhere. And that this approach to racial, socio-political, etc. conversation that we have brought with us from our, I guess, our challenges in other areas. This laboratory idea that it's got to be outside of us for it to be legitimate it's bullshit. You need to flush that down the toilet with the rest of the turds. Who cares what the beaker says? What matters is the recapture of our destiny. And you know what? If God did say that about a particular person, and I argue that against him, he would have to agree with me.
And a big part of that, too, is because white people have, I think, internalized a lot of what the media says about us, which is that, well, we're on top of the world, so what do we really have to complain about?
Yeah, precisely. Well, the white people who are, the kind of white people who are saying we're on top of the world, so what do we have to complain about? The vast majority of those are anti-white or leaning anti-white or villainy signaling anti-white. Of those individuals. All of the rest of the white population, they are suffering this psychosis from the cognitive dissonance of what they are told to believe in their fiction, which their subconscious mind believes is reality, and then what they consciously live in the world that is a 180-degree diametrical opposition to what they are taught, and they have to say that the fiction is actually the truth, even though they are living the opposite. Let's keep, he's got potential though. He's got a lot of potential. And I tell you what, if somebody wants to listen to this and they want to cut out my snarky bits and send it to him, more power to you. You'll probably be doing some good for our people.
But here's the problem. This is not going to be a white country forever. And
wait a second. I'm concerned about where he's going with that. It's not, he's right that it's not going to be a white country forever if things continue on the trajectory. You'd say that about all of the Western countries, but let's see where he goes.
And it's not going to be a white country for very much longer. In a lot of places, it already isn't.
Okay, now I'm getting a little bit more concerned about where he's going. This, and then we'll see what he actually says. This idea, this looking out at this date, we're no longer going to be a numerically white majority country, is another way to engender this passivity, this absolute do nothing attitude, because now you have looked out. There's this horror moment in the future, and so I just have to have my bags packed before then, and so that's when it will really get bad, and I'll just survive till if I can. Okay, so if it's out there 70 years, well, I'll be dead. Or if it's out there 50 years, well, I'll be, too old to even care. If it's out there like 30 years, well, then maybe I'll have to move. We'll have to start, me and the missus will have to look for a place to move. You never want to do that. You never want to do that. You want to say to folks the reality. And that has nothing to do with, well, there's going to be some demarcation point where things will go from good or whatever they are, status quo, to then really bad, because that will cause them to sit on their hands.
And in a lot of ways, it already isn't a white country anymore. And as the percentage...
In 100% of the ways, the United States and the rest of the West are not Western countries. 100% of the ways. I mean, it's just, where is it white anymore except where it's being white erased? Let's keep rolling. But I get what he's saying. I mean, you can't put every description of every single thing into every single sentence. So I get where he's coming from. I get what he's saying, and I'm not being critical of that. So let's roll.
Proportion of white people diminishes in America relative to non-white people, it's going to become more and more of a problem for white people that non-white people don't like us. It's just that simple.
All right, that's where he's beginning to go wrong, and it's wrong in a significant way, in the same way that when you are at the range, and the further your target is away from you, the smaller the error needs to be for the bullet to miss the target. So what he's doing right there is he is equating harm to our people with other races of man. And that is way off the mark. Our problem is anti-whiteism. Our problem is white and non-white people who are anti-white. Things are not going to get bad because more non-white people show up, just generally speaking. Things are going to get bad because more anti-whites show up. That is an enormous difference. That is not semantics. If I were able to be on television and tell all of our brothers and sisters who had the TV on, every single channel, across the West, and tell them that this is a matter of what people are thinking and doing rather than their immutable characteristics, being non-white, for example, infinitely more people of our brothers and sisters would say, he's right. He's absolutely right about that. Far fewer are going to say, well, things are going to get bad if there are non-white people, period. So now maybe he's thinking exactly the way that I'm elucidating here. I don't know, but he's not saying that. So let's continue to listen. Maybe he does.
Just think about it in these simple terms. The media attacks white people. They say that white people cause the suffering of non-white people. Increasingly, non-white people don't like white people. Nobody talks about that.
Well, all anti-whites will not like and do not like white people. They hate Western kind. And that's another one he should pick up and start using, Western kind. And if he is a very moral chap, and perhaps he is, he will say, hey, there's this guy, Jason Köhne, and he's got a whole community of these apostles that are out spreading anti-whitism, Western kind, to unite us as a single people with many countries around the world. Doesn't get a lot of attention because he's boring, because Jason is boring, because he's not handsome enough, because he doesn't, I don't know, I don't tell enough jokes or whatever it is. So, but this guy and his community, they're doing some great work, and we're going to be picking up some of the things that they use for the good of all of our people, for the good of all of us. I want this young man to live in a place and be able to raise a very healthy, lovely little family, white picket fence, and have wonderful videos, silly videos of the family, and they're having this silly, and he's putting the decorations on the tree. If he's Christian or Catholic, December, and he knocks it over. I want beautiful memories for them, and this is the way to go. So let's go ahead and continue listening.
But we know that non-white people largely regard white people with suspicion, distrust, in some cases.
No, not non-white people, not because of their immutable characteristic. Only when they're anti-white, and it's the exact same with white anti-whites. I mean, who has maybe this young man hasn't gone to a rally or a march. I've been to many over the years, and we don't do those, remember, anymore. And we were talking about that last night, if you want to learn more. And the most insane are these white anti-whites, and particularly these harridans, these foul termagants, and anti-white females. They are worse in a great many ways.
Just don't like them, hate them. Nobody wants to say that. People are very comfortable talking about racism.
And again, the problem then with this view is that you get your audience looking to the immutable characteristics. So not only are you turning off brothers and sisters out there who could come over, but you're also putting these people, you're putting their sights in the wrong place. It's like trying to teach someone how to spot the poisonous snakes in an environment that you're going to be in, and you teach them to listen for a particular way that snakes move through the leaf litter. Well, if you do that, then they're not going to be identifying the poisonous snakes. They're only going to be listening for this sound, and they're going to be therefore led wrong. They're going to end up getting zapped by poisonous snakes because you think of if you are up in the Blue Ridge Mountains and you timber rattler is just going to be sitting there waiting for you, and he's going to have a giant diamond-shaped mouth full of poison that's going to, as we say down home here in the South, kill you dead. And he's not going to make a sound. He's just going to zap. So you have to teach them that you're looking for anti-whites, not looking for an immutable characteristic. And then also, it's immoral. It's really immoral to just say that a person is bad because they're non-white and that they have been taught inside the anti-white narrative that white people are awful. We have non-white people who are going free, who are serving white well-being, who are helping us to stop anti-whitism, who also grew up in the anti-white narrative, because you can't grow up anywhere else. Let's keep rolling.
Against blacks or other non-whites, but nobody talks about the distrust. Nobody talks about the resentment that non-white people have for white people in the country. And it's not everybody, but it is.
No, it's the resentment that anti-whites have for white people. But you're so close, so close. I'm telling you, mentorship.
A lot of people, and everyone knows that.
Wouldn't it be something if this guy's smart, talented, able to garner a big audience and growing audience, I'm told. And wouldn't it be something if he were a little bit more like me when I was younger? And I still call and go and meet with these guys all the time to get their input, all the time. Wouldn't that be nice? He's like, hey, this guy's got something. This Jason guy's got something that really was working. His whole community is look at the Yiz woman and look at all these different folks, the amazing things they're doing. Sloth's, the amazing things that he's doing. So many great folks out there making Irish ice. We could go on and on. I wish I could remember, and we're going to remember everybody's names. We're getting them into the magazine. We'll get your names in the magazine. They're having all of the success. Why don't I get some tips?
As the population becomes less and less white, and as the people in charge of the country and the people enforcing the laws of the people in the country, in charge of the country, become less and less white, that's going to matter a lot more.
Now, completely disagree with the final thought. The fact that they're non-white is not going to make it more problematic. The fact that they're anti-white is what will make it more problematic. Huge difference, and it makes a big difference downrange when you view it these two different ways. That doesn't mean, I'm not at all saying, and for those out there with an IQ above room temperature, you know that I'm not saying that white people should live in non-white majority countries. I'm not saying that at all. I'm averring an absolute truth that the country becoming more non-white is not the catalyst for our victimization. Anti-whitism is the catalyst for our victimization. The government, it doesn't matter what races fill the seats. It doesn't matter whatsoever, because they are all already anti-white. Hold on, this day just got a whole lot better. While wrapping up this video about the two conversations during two different Going Frees that we played here, I received an email with a message about a guy by the name of Elijah Schaefer, who has something like 400,000 subscribers, and this happened.
Elijah, go out on the street right now. Can you say kill white people with no repercussion?
Absolutely.
Can you say kill black people with no repercussion?
No.
Exactly. There you go. That's
You
all
could
you need to know.
you could attack a white person while using anti-white slurs.
And if that wasn't enough to make me like this guy, this happens.
That opened the door where they were right now. What's happened is
get more specific. What specifically are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about when the immigration laws were changed, when we had this similar biospirit, and there was.
I am really liking this guy. And what the heck? I'll throw this in too.